Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we interview musicians and members of the entertainment community.
Another foggy night, another night wasted, staring at the bottom of the glass, looking for answers. I've been dreaming of the past, the years that I let go. I've been trying to ease the pain the best way I know. Well, I can't remember, help me to remember. I thought I had this under control. Help me to remember. I don't wanna lose time, I don't wanna lose face. Tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space. So many times will I seek out some comfort, taking things a little too fast and a little bit too far. Distraction is the way, the hero that saves me. Well, maybe it can ease the pain, even temporarily. But I can't remember, help me to remember. Thought I had this under control. Help me to remember. I don't wanna lose time, I don't wanna lose face. Just tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space. I don't wanna lose my mind, fall into a bad place. Just tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space. What was in the blank space? The smell of cigarettes on my pillow this morning. Memories of where I've been, but not what was said. Maybe I don't wanna know. 'Cause there's enough going on in my head. I don't wanna lose time, I don't wanna lose face. Tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space. And I don't wanna lose my mind, fall into a bad place. Just tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space. I don't wanna lose time, I don't wanna lose face. Just tell me what I did that night, what was in the blank space.
Sophisticated venue. So, yeah, I thought I'm in.
That's not bad.
Mm.
Yeah, who's your favorite U2 member?
Oh, that is such a hard question because at different times they are all your favorite. But I think the most down to earth one would be Adam Clayton. He's the bass player, and in bands, often the rhythm section doesn't get as much attention as the singer or lead guitarist, and as a result, I find they're a bit more humble.
Why does Cat always go? Every time I'm on a podcast, she wants to be part of it. No, you gotta lie down, okay?
I have a cat as well. I've got a kitten, and he likes to jump up and wreck things. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let me guess. Your kitten's a black cat, right? Because they have a
no,
lot of
it's white and grey. It's only 12 months old, but it's still very playful. Mm.
Well, even at 9 years old, she's still like, Hannah, stop. um, so everyone, we have Ethan Davis. He's a self-taught singer-songwriter from South Australia, more like
Hello.
Adelaide.
Well, near to
Here
Adelaide, yeah.
it's 7:02 a.m., but there it's 9:32 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Yes.
And while he's just leaving the day, we're just starting it. So you started playing guitar at age 30, and after years of recording demos at home, you decided to take the next step and visit a recording studio. And because of that, now you got 3 albums. And everyone, 3 albums are This Is My Worst Enemy, 2016, and then A World Away From You, 2018, and Stars Aligning, 2022. Now, before we begin, can you give us a little bit of background of who Ethan Davis is? Where did you start? Where were you music roots? And what were you like as a kid growing up?
I've always been a very creative type. So when I was a teenager, I would write stories. And around about that same time, I started writing songs, just lyrics. I couldn't play an instrument, but I had a computer with a very basic program on it called Screen Tracker, where you could actually program in all these very fake sounding instruments and sing over top of it. And that's where I got my start. But it wasn't until the age of 30 where I thought, you know what, I need to do this properly. So I went and bought my first acoustic guitar and just taught myself the basics of playing guitar. And then I managed to get a hold of some recording software from my friend, and I started actually recording these songs that I had written. And I realized that I had to go further with this. So I wrote about 3 dozen songs over the next 5 years and just recorded them at home.
Wow.
And then a friend of mine, for my birthday one year, decided to gift me with a voucher for 2 hours of studio time in Adelaide. And she said, you know what, you need to do this for real. And I got to tell you, I was very scared, very nervous about doing it. I thought I would go there and I would suck, and I just felt very nervous about it. But eventually, I went there with my mate Glenn Gearing, who's my bass player, and we recorded one of my songs, and it just sounded so good. And we decided right then and there, let's do an album. And that was now nearly 8 years ago, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the album "This Is My Worst Enemy." I was
Time is
listening
my
to.
worst enemy. Yeah, it's called Time Is My Worst Enemy because it was how I felt at that time. I felt like time was getting away from me. I was approaching my late 30s, and I felt like maybe I hadn't done the things that I wanted to do. And so a lot of the lyrics in there kind of reflect where I was at that point in my life.
Yeah, I was listening to the song "The Girl Who Traveled the World." It goes, "I want to jump inside your photographs. I want to reach out and say, I wish I was there with you. The world is your playground, ripe to explore." Beautiful lyrics. Can you give me a little bit of how your song process? How does that work, and where did you come up with the lyrics? Especially the first one, "I want to jump inside your photographs." Is this about your
Oh,
fiance?
no, this was this was before that. This goes back a couple of years. I guess the song is about seeing someone living their best life. So it could be your daughter. So I did a video clip for that song a few months ago, and in the video clip, the song is about this daughter that I have. I don't have one in real life, but she plays my daughter in the video, and she is the girl that traveled the world, and I'm sort of watching on as she is living her best life, and I'm wishing that I could be a part of that. And in regards to how I come up with the songs, often I'll be watching television, I'll have my guitar, I'm just noodling around, and I will just start singing. Sometimes it's nonsense, sometimes it's just something that pops into my head, and I think I can use that. So I'll grab my phone and I will record it, either sing it or play it into my phone. And then you've got the chorus of your song, and then you think, oh man, now I've got to come up with the rest of the song. That's the hard part.
Yeah, when I was listening to The Girl Who Traveled the World, I'm thinking, wait a minute, he sounds like David Gray.
Oh, okay.
You got a little bit of David Gray vibes there. You ever heard of David Gray?
I have. I can't say I'm very familiar with his stuff, but I'll assume that that's a compliment.
It is, because he sings the song "Please Forgive Me," and in the video, he's got the piano suspended in the air, and
Yeah.
he's playing, and really, really haunting song. Yeah, you got the whole David Gray vibes. I like it.
Oh,
So
great.
this is quite a song, and then you end it with "If I had half your drive, I'd feel so much more alive," and then you ended the song. Like,
Yes.
that's the end of the
It,
song. Why
yeah.
was that the end of the song?
It's a song. Well, it's a song about wishing that you could be there with that person, wishing that you were more outgoing yourself, and that if I had their drive, I would be out living my best life with them. But in the song, I don't, and I'm kind of just watching them as an observer living their best life. Um, and it works as a very good pre-chorus as well. So
Yeah, great song. I added it to my playlist on
oh, thanks.
Spotify. Um, so your last album, Stars Aligning, in 2022, you recorded it with a full backing band, and it was mastered by Sydney's prestigious Studios 301. Could you tell me about what kind of Studios 301 is, and how did you find the backing band?
Okay, so first of all, yeah, Studio 301 is probably Australia's most well-known recording studio. They've recorded a lot of the biggest names in Australian music and mastered it. And I thought, this being my third album, I thought, you know what, with this one, I'm going all out with it. I'm pulling out all the stops, putting in all the effort. I'm just going to get the best job done that I possibly can. So I just approached him and said, I've got this album and I would like Steve Smart, his name is, to master it. And it was great. He was a very friendly guy, very accommodating, and he liked what I sent him, and I think it sounds great. And as for my backing band, so I have a friend called Glenn Gearing. He has been on all three of my albums doing the bass guitar and the harmonizing vocals that you hear. And for this third album, I used an actual live drum kit. The first two albums, the drums are computer programmed, but with this latest one, got a friend of mine who's an actual drummer, and another friend of mine who's a very good lead guitarist, because I wanted to, as I said, I wanted this album to sound the absolute best that I could, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, if you chose one of your friends who was a drummer to play drums, then he must be good.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't ask him if they weren't good. Trust me.
Yeah. So yeah, I was looking at that song "Blank Space." And I'm like, wait, is that a cover of Taylor Swift songs? And then I listened to it and I'm like, no, it's not. It's his very own song.
Oh no.
And it's based on blunt presentation on the effects of alcohol abuse. Now, can you give us a little bit of background about that? Is that
Yeah,
any kind of experience?
yeah, it is. I think that it relates. I mean, a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of people have been in the situation where you drink to escape your problems, and sometimes you go a little bit too far with it, and you end up with these gaps in your memory, these blank spaces, and you wonder, did I do something I shouldn't have? Did I say something I shouldn't have? And it's something that I did a lot in my younger years, 20s and 30s. And I think as I said, a lot of people can relate to it. And that song is one of my favorites that I have written, because it's such an emotional song. And the way the song was recorded, like, it's got instead of just your normal drums, it's got like the brushes being used. It's got that delicate guitar arpeggio picking. I'm just really proud of that one because it's a statement that alcohol can be a bad thing if used in the wrong way.
And it's not something you want to continue with, because I've known people it just destroys their life, and they
Yeah,
end up on the street, and they become not as bad as meth dealers and people on
no,
meth, but alcoholism can destroy lives.
yes,
And
absolutely. And that's what I wanted to get across, that it's not the answer, even though it may feel like it. And just the effects of it, basically. Just, like I said, drinking to escape your problems, but then you wind up not being able to remember what you did. And again, we filmed a video clip for that song. It's in black and white. Looks really good, and it shows the before and after of a big night out. And yeah, as I said, that is one of my favorite songs that I have done.
yeah, well, The Girl Who Traveled the World was a really good song. Can you tell me, between your albums Time Is My Worst Enemy, A World Away from You, and Stars Aligning, which one was the most difficult to put together? If they're all full of experiences, I think.
I think um, the first one was the easiest because I already had the songs there. A lot of those songs were written about 5 years before I recorded them. I'd been messing around with them at home as demos, so they were basically already written. Um, but then you have your second album, and a lot of bands or artists have to deal with the difficult second album because whilst you've had your whole life to write the first album, you then got to write a whole fresh batch of songs for your second one. So that one was a little difficult, but I think the most recent one for me was the hardest because I had such high standards, and I would not sign off on a song and say it was finished until I was absolutely sure that it was good enough. I did so many rewrites of the lyrics. Um, I don't know. I would say probably numbers 2 and 3 were quite hard. The first one was the easiest, though.
Yeah, because by the time you got The World Away from You, you didn't have any songs remaining, so you
I,
had
I
to
I had a few. To
write
be
them from
honest with
scratch.
you, I did use a few of my old ones for that one, but I had to drastically rewrite them. Um, and you know, there's the lead off song from that album is called "A Million Miles Away," and that song only came like 2 months before I finished the album. In the studio, I just was playing my guitar one day and came up with this riff, and I thought, oh, that's something, I've got to use that, and that ended up being the lead off song from that album. And sometimes these songs can appear out of nowhere, and they basically save your album because all of a sudden you've got the best song on the album or whatever. Just it's there now, you know.
Yeah, like, great songs, great
Hmm.
songs. Um, who inspires you? Like, who do you have on your current playlist, or besides you two, of course?
Okay.
Who inspires you? Like, would you say that The Edge is someone that you like to aspire to be like?
Um, yeah, I see. I'm a rhythm guitarist. I'm not. I'm not very good at playing lead guitar, but I do like to use. He uses a lot of delay, for example. So there is, obviously some things rub off. People have said some of my singing in some parts reminds them of the way Bono sings. Um, I guess you can't help that it rubs off on you. But also, other bands that I listen to and influenced by are Coldplay, uh, The Killers,
Mm.
um, even someone like Robbie Williams.
Yes, my
Yeah,
favorite. I
yeah,
like him.
he's great. Um, so people like that are really great songwriters, I find that's who I kind of emulate.
Yeah, I like a lot of Robbie Williams' early stuff, like Millennium,
Mm,
and No Regrets is my favorite song. And Angels, that's one of the most greatest ever
yeah.
tunes. I just love that song. But a lot of his newer stuff is a little bit more. It's different. You imagine, like for instance, Leanne Rimes. She started out as country. In fact, Taylor Swift
Yeah,
started out as country, and then it decided to go in a different direction. What do you think of that for artists who start out as country and then they go on to, you know, become like big rockers? I'm like, why did you do that? What's the reason for
I
that?
think I think everyone has to grow and change as an artist. I think you should grow because you don't want every one of your albums sounding exactly the same. Um, and having said that, my three all have a similar style, but you know, um, I think a lot of bands, as time goes by, especially a band that starts in the '80s, they're not going to sound like a band from the '80s in the 2020s with all the modern technology at your disposal. And quite often you hear about these older bands. Oh, they were good back in the day. I like their old stuff, but you know, I'm just still glad that bands like U2 and other bands from the '80s are still going.
Yeah, still going. I was talking to another musician about 80-year-old Mick Jagger and 80-year-old
Mm.
Paul McCartney still strutting it. Like even like I don't know if you saw that video of Mick Jagger on his 80th, but he's still strumming and still
Yeah,
dancing and woohoo, 80 years
yeah,
old. Like, like what the heck? I mean,
yeah, yeah. It
it's
just goes to
amazing.
show
But
if you've
yeah,
got, yeah, if you still want it, you can do it. So,
do you feel that there is a retirement age for musicians or no?
oh, maybe with some bands you would think, yeah, they probably should have called it a day a while ago. Um, but I don't think there is a set retirement age. It's not like a standard job. It's not a 9 to 5 job. When you're in a big band, you can work whenever you want, and you don't have to worry about the bills because you've got a lot of money. So, but I do find that as artists get older, they may lose a bit of their drive, their urgency, because they're in a better place in their life. They're happy. They don't. They have less problems to sing about as an older artist, as a rich, successful artist. It's very easy to lose that hunger, and that's why you find a lot of older artists, sometimes it's like 10 years between albums as opposed to when you're a new artist 1 or 2 years.
What do you think about losing lead singers? Do you think the band should continue? For instance, when Chester Bennington died, um, Mike Shinoda decided to, we're not going to tour anymore because, Chester's gone. And then their second album, Meteora, that came out in the early 2000s, was supposed to have 13 songs. One of them was lost. So
Yeah,
they came out with 12 songs, and the song Lost, he decided to release a few months ago, which is a good song, by the way. But
yeah. I
it'll
I'm
have
actually
it'll have Chester Bennington's voice because it was recorded 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Do you
I
think
I am
yeah,
a massive Linkin Park fan, actually. I
me
discovered
too.
them later on in life, but
Yeah.
I was a big fan of theirs until he died, and I still remember that exact day because I was quite affected by it because I saw him as a bit of a hero of mine, and he was a very dynamic singer. He could sing almost like a boy band vocal, but then he could
Mhm.
scream, and yeah, and it's funny you should mention him because one of the songs on A World Away from You is a song called Even Heroes Have Bad Days, and I wrote that song about Chester Bennington dying. So um, that was my way of talking about how I felt about the situation, saying that even the people that we look up to, these people that you think have everything, that shouldn't have anything to worry about, they suffer just as much as the rest of us. And in regards to Lost, yes, I that song has been getting a lot of. I've been streaming that a lot. That song, it is really good. It's that old school Linkin Park vibe, and it's just so good to hear another one of their songs, even though it's an old song. we haven't heard it before. So I love it.
Yeah. Do you think Linkin Park should continue as a band?
Oh, that's tricky because in the case of Chester Bennington, he was a vocalist that is very hard to emulate because, like I said, he had a very dynamic range. You can't just get anyone in to sing that because those songs are difficult to sing. So at the moment, it's been 6.5 years, and they haven't done anything new, and I don't know if they're going to, and I'm undecided whether or not they should.
Well, in the advent of AI, do you think if Mike Shinoda said, "Okay, we're going to continue as a band, but we're going to use Chester Bennington's, and we're going to do an AI, and we're going to clone his voice," do you think what he would do is wrong, or do you think it's a good idea? What are your
Oh,
feelings on that?
that's a bit of a grey area. There's going to be people that support it and people that don't. I mean, I would listen. I would, by all means, I would have a listen. But I think knowing that it was computer generated and not a real person, it might take something away from the songs, knowing that they're not real.
Well, I know with Rolling Stones after Charlie Watts passed, I don't know who's playing the drums, but well, first we have Chicago and was led by Terry Kath, and he died, and Peter Cetera became the lead singer, and then Peter Cetera left, and now it's another lead singer. I don't know how I feel about lead singers passing away,
Mm.
leaving bands. Like thinking, well, we started as a band, the lead singer was with us for 20 years.
Well,
Now that he's gone, should we stop?
I'll give you an example. The Australian band In Excess lost their singer Michael Hutchence in 1997. They were a very successful band in the late 80s and early 90s, and then he died. And instead of calling it a day, they tried a few different singers, but it just never took off. It never worked out in the long run. So yeah, I think once you lose your singer, you may. I think maybe it's time to end it. I'm not. I don't have a definitive answer on that. It's a very tricky subject to answer.
So besides Blank Space, which is about alcoholism, is there other hidden meanings in any of your music?
Yeah, there is. Okay, so let me think. What's a good song to talk about? Okay, so on Stars Aligning, there's another song called "Close the Doors," and it's a ballad. That song is about letting go of someone that you really need to let go of, someone that used to be in your life. Things didn't work out. You need to let it go and stop blaming yourself for it. So that's one of the more emotional songs that I've recorded. But at the same time, on the same album, I have these. There's a couple of upbeat, happy love songs. "Colors" and "Open My Heart" are both written about when you first fall in love with someone and everything is going well and you feel high on life. So I think I have a bit of a dynamic range of, there's happy songs and then there's songs that are very serious at the same time.
What are your thoughts on love songs? Do you have any songs that you wrote for your fiance or about your fiance?
uh, Quite possibly, yeah. Um, they're hard to write. They're very hard to write because as an artist, it's very easy to be negative or to write sad songs. But I find that writing a song where talking about how happy you are, they are very hard to write because it can come across as very cheesy. So you got to be careful with that. But I think at the same time, you don't want to have an album full of depressing songs. You want to have songs that people can, like dance to and groove to. And that the opening song on Stars Aligning is called Colors. That is a love song about those first days of falling in love with someone, and that's one of my other favorites. It just came together so well, and it's just a very joyful song, and I think it's important to have those songs just so that everything is not so negative.
So what about Open My Heart? Is that a love song from your
Oh yeah,
new album?
absolutely, absolutely, that one. Yeah, that is unashamedly a love song. um, but like I said, I'm proud of these songs. They have a meaning, and that one, yeah, was written about someone who's very special to me. And I think, though, like I said, you wanna be careful with how lovey dovey they are. You want them to sound, you don't want to be ooh baby baby. You want to have some very good lyrics and melody in there as well.
Let's dive deep down into your psyche here. How about Moonlight? What's that song about?
Moonlight. Okay, so that song has a very interesting background, because that was when I told you before that I had, as a teenager, written lyrics for songs and composed them with very bad sounding instrumental effects on a computer in like 1996. That was one of the songs I first wrote way back when, and the lyric has changed, and now obviously it's recorded with a band, but the melody and vibe of the song hasn't changed in over 20 years. And that song, again, is a very, I think it's kind of sultry. It's about again laying in bed with your lover and feeling happy about where you are in life. And that song has been a favorite of a few people. I think it's just, as I said, it's got that very sultry vibe, but it's got that very anthemic chorus. It's almost like a stadium chorus. So yeah, no, that's another good one.
Well, let me ask you this. I know this isn't a love song, Down in Flames, unless it's a relationship that went
Oh,
sour.
no, no, that song is about. At the risk of sounding egotistical, that song is about myself. It's a song about being an unknown musical artist, being in the studio and trying your best to make the absolute best album song that you can, and knowing that it doesn't matter if people don't hear it or if people think it sucks. You have done your best, and you will always be proud of it. Like, so the line, if I go down in flames, at least I gave it all. It's very telling.
Yeah, excellent. I really love that album. I don't even know which album to say is the best album, but I like them all. Um,
That's all right.
so, can you discuss with us how you interact with and respond to your fans?
Oh, fans, what are they? No, okay, I occasionally you'll get
Mhm.
some good feedback from people, and I'm always very humble about it, very appreciative of it, because it is not something that you should take for granted. When you're, if you're very well known, everyone says, "Oh, I love you. Your music saved my life," that kind of thing, and it's a
Mhm.
bit. But when you're not well known, to have someone say that to you, it means a lot, and it means so much more actually when it's someone that you don't know, because when you release music, obviously your friends, your family, they're going to be very supportive and say, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's very good," but they can be biased. So if you want an objective opinion, you get someone that doesn't know you, and if they listen to your music and say, "Hey, that was really good. I felt that." That is the one of the biggest compliments that you can get.
You gotta accept the fans that, like, you would make my day if someone walked up to me and said, "You look so familiar." I said, "Do you have a podcast?" I'd be going, "Yes." I'd be going, "Yeah, someone recognizes me." But
Yeah,
even if I wear this hat and I wear this shirt and I go out to a mall or something, people aren't going to say, "Hey, I saw your podcast." You know, it'd be nice,
yeah,
but
and that's. I've always said to myself, I would love to be in the position where, like, this is one of my goals, would be to be in the position where you could actually have merchandise with your face or your name on it. A lot of bands do it, um, but I think, yeah, to have enough of a following that you could actually see someone walking around with your face on their t-shirt, I think that would be a very good feeling.
yeah. Um, I know a few bands that actually have created merchandise and T-shirts. Like last night, I had band called 13 Occult, and they had
Mhm.
T-shirts with their band name on it. And I think Grim Rock is another one. So yeah, I mean, I would love to have like T-shirts that have my podcast logo on it, and then
Yeah,
have the QR code in the back, so people would just scan my back and say, "Oh, on stage podcast." You know, you gotta advertise yourself, right?
yeah. One idea I've had, and I may still do it, is to actually put a couple of my singles on a 7-inch vinyl. Like, you have an A side and a B side of two of your songs, and have like a very, very limited release of vinyl. That would be something very cool to do, I think.
Is that expensive to do? To just suddenly say, "I want some songs released on vinyl." Have you ever
Yeah.
investigated
Um,
it?
with those sorts of things, it gets cheaper the more you do, but you're not going to print up like 1,000 copies, because they'll just be sitting in your cupboard. But um, I've looked into it recently, and I still may do it, but it's not that expensive. I mean, you're doing it more for the novelty of it, and if you sell it and get some money back, well, that's good.
So how do you deal with your mental health and performance anxiety?
I, I've always hated public speaking. Always just absolutely hate it. And recently, I was approached by someone to do a speech on how music can affect your mental health. So
Nice.
that was, as someone that hates public speaking, that was tricky. So I had to do like a 15-minute speech and then sing a couple of my songs which tie in with mental health. So Blank Space was one of them.
I was thinking that,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So that was hard. And when I play a gig, the first few songs you're always a bit clumsy. You're a bit, your palms get a bit sweaty and you get a bit nervous. But then I think you find your stride and you just start enjoying it, and feeding off the people that are watching you. If you've got a good audience that are getting into it, I think it makes it so much easier.
I totally agree with you, Ethan. Um, like for instance, this podcast. So during the pandemic, people were doing things like, I don't know if you did this, but performing online. They said, "Well, I can't work or can't be around people," so they picked up a guitar like you, or and they did music. And I think the pandemic changed a lot, but for the better. Even though we know about people who have died and stuff, but for people who were able to use that opportunity, for me, I also don't like public speaking. And already I led one meeting at work, and in September of 2021, I took an effective communications course. And I'm like, when are you going to
Mhm.
be able to do that? I mean, you have social distancing, you can't even be in the same room with people. How is that going to work? And I said, I know what I'll do. I'll open a podcast. So on October 11th, 2021, On Stage Podcast is born. And this October 11th will be 2 years, 140 episodes later, still talking to wonderful people like you, learning a lot. I love it. But
Yeah,
if someone were to say, "Can you do like a TED talk on podcasting?" I'd say, "Well, I know three people who could do it. Me, I'd rather just sit down and watch them do it." But
yeah,
people like I'm also a tenor, like I'm also a singer, vocalist, and I have this. like you said, don't like to praise myself, but I have a great vibrato in my voice.
Yeah,
And I know a lot of singers have vibratos. You probably have one. And people say, "Hey, can you teach me how to do that?" I'm like, "Do what?" "Teach me how to do a vibrato." So you can't. It's natural. If you don't have one, you
yeah,
can't be taught.
yeah,
And that was the end of the training session. But if someone said, "Can you teach me how to sing?" I know 3 people who can help you sing. For me, it's sort of like I like to do things on my own, but if I knew someone said, "Tell me how you do it. Tell me how you do podcasts." Okay, sit down. And then I go through the whole thing. But it's just one-on-one. I'm sort of like a one-on-one person. But for me to stand
mm,
up in front of all these people and say, "Yeah, I started my podcast, blah, blah, blah,"
yeah,
and then suddenly I'm like, "Oh my god, people must have thought I was," So I don't have that gift of gab, but when I did a few venues to sing a few Christmas songs. I go Holy Night. Um, Usually, I kind of do the whole Joe Cocker thing where I'm shaking and everything because I use my hands to time with the music. Like my hand is different notes. Just to stand
yeah,
there with my hands behind my back and start singing, I'll be like, la la la.
yeah,
Um, So yeah, and to deal with my mental health, I would go for walks, or I would write poetry, or watch something, or
yeah.
watch a few teaching videos on YouTube.
Well,
But
I find that music is good to get things off your chest.
mhm.
If you're struggling with something, I find that putting pen to paper, or these days typing it on a laptop, writing the lyrics and coming up with a song, I find that's what I've always done. I find the best way to express yourself, if you're struggling with talking to someone person to person, I think the best way to express yourself is by music. And then the thing is too, like, people then can take it however they want it. So with my songs, when I write them, I try not to make them too specific. I try to have a bit of ambiguity there so that the listener can then relate it to themselves, like a situation they've been through with someone else.
Yeah, I want to ask you relating to the pandemic. Now, your first album, "Time Is My Worst Enemy," is 2016, and your second one, "A World Away from You," 2018, and then you had 2019, and then the pandemic, 2020.
Mm.
Is Coming Out with Stars aligning in 2022 the gap between like the 3-year gap? Is it because of the pandemic or
No,
because you
I
wanted to do other things?
I was
What
I
was
was
it like
burnt
for
out.
you?
I was burnt out, to be honest with you. Recording an album, especially when you're doing it all yourself, pretty much, writing the songs and composing them all yourself, is a lot of hard work because you have to have high standards. You can't just let anything pass. They have to be as best as, if you're not recording what you think is your best album or best song, you shouldn't be doing it. You know, so um, and the thing is, the studio that I use is about a 2.5 hour drive from where I live. So what we
Really?
would do is go down once a month and lay down a couple of songs, go down the next month, lay down a couple of songs, and they would all get mixed. And basically, the process of recording and mixing an album can take 9 months to a year. And so it's a very long time. And because you're writing the songs and constantly reworking them, rewriting the lyrics, you can get burnt out. You can get sick of the songs and lose the enthusiasm if they're not good enough. Um, so I think after the second album, I was a little bit burnt out. So I deliberately took a year off anyway. Like 2019, I didn't really do anything, and 2020, I just started coming up with ideas. Like I said before, like, I'd be just playing my guitar and think, "Oh, that's really good." So I'd grab the phone, record, or you come up with good vocal melody. So while you're at work, you'll grab your phone and you'll, like, whisper it into the phone. Um, so it was the beginning of, or the end of 2020, when I first started writing the fresh batch of songs and composing them at home in demo form. And then over the course of the next 9 months, I had all the demos written. And then I thought, you know what? Let's do this again, and the rest is history.
And during the pandemic, did you already know your fiance? Did you spend a lot of time with her, or did you have
No,
to social distance?
no, I hadn't met her at that point. So
Oh, really? Wow,
no.
you work fast.
Oh, look, I'm no spring chicken anymore. No, that was just after the pandemic. So um, yeah, the pandemic for me was it didn't really affect us as much here in Australia as it did the rest of the world. We didn't have much in the way of lockdowns. We still went to work like normal. We just had to wear the masks. I think we had one lockdown for a week, and that was it.
Wow.
So yeah, I know it affected like even other places in Australia, like Melbourne on the eastern coast. They were in lockdown for weeks and weeks, but I don't think we quite got it as bad here. So we were lucky.
Was she drawn to you for the fact that you're a musician? Because you know how girls like to gravitate towards singers, songwriters, musicians,
I
band
don't know.
members.
I don't know. I'd like to think so. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, when you first meet someone, one of the things you tell them is, "Oh, I'm a aspiring musician, so here's my stuff. Have a listen." I think she's the type though that if I sucked, she would probably tell me. So I'm glad that her and her family are all very supportive of what I do.
How do you describe your music to someone who's never heard it before?
That's a tricky one because I've quite often I've thought to myself, what is my genre? When people say, "What kind of music do you do?" and I say, I would say soft rock, light rock, bit of pop, bit of acoustic. It's very hard to just say one word to describe your music. But I would say it's easy listening. It's very radio friendly, and it's very meaningful. Like if you read or listen to the lyrics, there's a it's some of the lyrics are very heavy, and I've had to actually reel myself in a bit sometimes where I'm starting to reveal too much, and I think no, 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 don't give too much away. But I think yeah, like especially songs like Blank Space, it's meaningful music, and my hope as a musician is that you can connect with people who hear your songs and say, I related to that.
If you weren't a musician, what other career path would you have pursued?
Oh. Well, I do have a day job. I do have a full-time job which pays pays for the studio time of being a musician. Um, but I don't know. When I was about 6 years old, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I wanted to dig up dinosaur bones.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was as easy as just go out in the backyard and dig up the dirt and you'll find some dinosaur bones.
Oh.
You know, um, but like I said, I work in the retail industry. I have a full time job, and the music thing, like I do the occasional gig on the weekends for a bit of extra cash, and I enjoy it. It's a hobby. It can be an expensive hobby, but it can be quite worthwhile as well.
Yeah, you never know who you're actually working with. Like, we worked with someone who used to do a children's show back in the 80s. And when I found out who he was, I'm like, what happened? Why didn't you leave? Look at your life now. Back then, I was immature. Um, and I remember another job I had. We had a country singer working with us. And I think she's famous now. I can't remember her name, but yeah. But I love doing this. I love talking to musicians like you. And when
Mm.
you're talking about you want to be a paleontologist, uh, back in high school, I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Yeah,
And my teacher, the history teacher, Mr. Savage, as soon as I told him I wanted to be an archaeologist, he was all over me talking about archaeology and blah, blah. And we were exchanging things. And I really wanted to be an archaeologist. And then um, I didn't know how to pursue that and how much money. So I started working for, I'm predating myself, but working for Photo Lab, the films and everything. Um, and one of our managers, Susan, I asked her, well, if you weren't a manager, what were you doing? And so, oh, I used to be an archaeologist, but I couldn't find work. And I'm like, what? Yeah, you are archaeologists. You can't find work. And I'm like, So if I had become an archaeologist, I probably wouldn't have been able to find work, even though
Mm,
it's far in between that. Archaeologists pretty lucky that they found work, but
mm.
I also wanted to be a doctor. I also wanted to be uh, an astronaut. But it's funny,
Okay.
when I was a kid, I never said to myself, I want to pursue music, because I used to sing and perform music when I was 7 or 8. And people, especially Elvis, or like when I was 8 or 9, I wanted to pursue music. Me, it was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I wanted to be this. But I never said, this is interesting. Maybe I should be a musician. But I didn't know I wanted to be a musician until like 10 years ago.
Mm,
And back in the early 2000, 2001, my fiance at that time, heard me singing and she said, don't give up your day job. And I didn't sing for 10 years because of that comment.
mm.
And
Yep.
also, she didn't become my wife because of that either. um, but I digress, talking about myself. This is
It's okay.
specifically podcast for you. Um, can you tell me, how do you approach practicing and rehearsing? Like, do you have any unique techniques or routines, pre-show
Yeah.
rituals?
So, um, if I'm playing a gig that's a good 2 or 3 hours long, it's going to be half my songs and half cover songs, right? So I play the covers. I play are songs that I like. A lot of bands play the same tired songs, um, and no, I won't do that. So I play the songs I like. But what I like to do is present them a little differently, like because I'm playing them acoustically just myself. I can change the key of the song. You can have it a lot more laid back, a lot lower, um, and it can give the song a completely different feel. So I try to do that. And in terms of practicing, when I have a gig up, I coming up, I say to myself, right, it's 2 weeks away. I've got to learn these songs. I have to set aside an hour or two, 2 nights a week to do this, and I do it because at the end of the day, I don't want to suck, so I'll put the work in.
Oh, of course. I mean, you don't want that, right?
No.
Um, do you think your music has evolved since you first started performing?
Yes. Yeah. Um, like I listen, like the lyrics on my first album as opposed to the third album. There's a drastic difference, I guess, in the maturity. There's experience there. Um, there's a lot that's happened in that time,
Mm.
and so some of those songs on my first album were written back when I was lucky to be 30 years old. But now in my 40s, I find that I've lived a lot more, and I think, yeah, I think I've definitely grown in that aspect. Yes.
Mind me asking, how many cover songs do you know? Like, can someone
Oh,
just stand up and say, "Can I have a request? Could you play it?"
oh, depends. It depends. I don't know hundreds, that's for sure. Because being an original artist, I've always tried not to do covers. I don't really want to play them because that's not what I am doing this for. But sometimes you have to because of the environment, and or if you have to play for 3 hours. Well, I don't have 3 hours of material of my own, so um, I find that it's covers are good to get the crowd on your side. I think, especially towards the end of the night when everyone's drunk and they're more likely to sing to it. Yeah, no, I do play them, yes, but as I said to you, it's only songs that I like myself.
Like Linkin Park?
Yeah, there's a couple of those. There's some Coldplay songs. There's Robbie Williams. I play a couple of his songs. Uh, yeah, it's all stuff that people would probably know, but it's not the obvious hits. Like I will never play Summer of '69 or um, Blister in
That's a
the
Bryan
Sun
Adams
or
song, isn't it?
yeah, it is. But everyone plays it, and that's the problem with that, is that you can get sick of it. And while it's not a bad song, I just don't want to play those songs that everyone else plays.
Yeah, my favorite Bryan Adams songs are "Inside Out" and "Best of Me." Those songs I'd love to stand, especially "Best of Me," just stand there,
Yeah.
"You got it! Do, 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 do." I love it. So let me see if you and I think alike. So your favorite Linkin Park songs that you play are "Breaking the Habit" and "Shadow of the Day"?
Well, Breaking the Habit, I've played that one. Yes, that is a very, obviously you can tell by the lyric, that's a very meaningful song. So
Mhm.
I like playing that one. I also play Numb
"Numb."
and Crawling. They're the ones that I've learnt so far. And I have played Leave Out All the Rest before as well. But as I said to you, those songs are not easy to sing. So you have to, play them in the appropriate key, or yeah. So
Yeah, I I went to see there's a band called Classical Albums, that's the name of the band. What they do
mm,
is they take an album and they play the whole album completely through. So what I saw was the Pink Floyd tribute, and what they did is they took uh, Dark Side of the Moon and they played every song from beginning to end,
mm,
everything exact, and it's like it's as good as just what. Well, I don't know if it's as good as watching the actual Pink Floyd play, but just watching them perform that Dark Side of the Moon, every song
mm,
crafted exactly. It was amazing. Then they played Brick in the Wall. Beautiful,
mm,
beautiful night. I'm not even a Pink Floyd fan, and I loved it.
yeah,
And then I saw an ABBA tribute band with the two girls. There's like Agnetha Faltskog and Bjorn Ulvaeus and the rest of the song, dressed up like them back in the '70s, playing ABBA, and I'm like, wow, because there's a Bee Gees tribute band called Night Fever, and they sound just like the Bee Gees. I
mm,
was listening to Inside Out the other day, and I'm like, wow, my favorite Bee Gees tune. And then they said, well, that was the Bee Gees tribute band Night Fever, and I'm like, what? They were good. They were really good. Um, how do you handle creative differences or challenges within your band or with collaborators?
um, I have a very because the people I record with are friends of mine. You've already got a good relationship, and we are all easygoing people ourselves. There's no divas in the band. So um and the people that I play with are very, very talented musicians. So I listen to them. If they say, I've come up with this 3-part harmony for your song, I'll be like, yeah, I'll take your word for it. And it's always, pretty much always bang on. So in terms of arguments, no, there's none of that. It's because I don't want that kind of environment. When I record, I enjoy being in the studio, and I love just having fun. I mean, at the same time, it is stressful because you're working against the clock. You're paying by the hour, so you want to get it right. But we've had a lot of laughs, a lot of fooling around in the studio, and I think that brings out the best in people because you're not too frustrated, you're not angry. You can relax and just let it out.
That's amazing.
Mm.
So, what kind of struggles or roadblocks in the industry, due to your background, genre, or any other factors, have you faced?
Well, getting yourself out there is the hardest part of all. Um, you record something, you spend a lot of time making it, and you're very proud of it. But now you're like, well, are people going to listen to this? So you have to, yeah, especially nowadays where every man and his dog can just record music and upload it, release it, because it's so easy to do these days. So to stand out from the crowd, I think you have to have something different going on, or you have to just be very good. Um, but with this album, for the first time ever, I did music videos. So I did 3 music videos for this latest album because music videos get a lot more attention than not having music videos, especially if it's a good music video with something different going on in it.
Is there time and tested with like the girl who traveled the world video, which I saw was fantastic, and then not having a music video? Have you ever tested to see if it does gain traction because of a music video? Have you
Yeah,
tested it?
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
okay, the song, I'll go back to Blank Space because this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That song came out on my album just over a year ago, and people liked it and all that sort of thing. But when I released the music video, all of a sudden there was a lot of interest because people are, as I said, are more inclined to watch a video than just listen to a song. And because the music video has such a strong message and it's really well done, I think all of a sudden I had people coming to work saying, "Oh, I saw your video the other day. That's a really good song." So definitely, absolutely, 100%. If you have a video, you're going to get a lot more traction, and it is just that feeling. Like I said, when you get someone you don't know coming up to you and saying, "I had your song stuck in my head the other day," that is words can't describe that.
Wow. Yeah. I would imagine that, especially. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Especially when it's sort of like I see a lot of music videos, and some of them are really good.
Mm,
And then I would definitely go to Spotify and add it to my list.
mm,
Some songs recently I've removed because I no longer like it. Um,
yeah.
but there are some bands and musicians out there that I still like even after 30 years. Some I've been
Yeah. Well,
listening to up until about a year or two ago. There was one time a few years ago when I got rid of 1,000 songs because I just wasn't interested in listening to them anymore.
yeah. Wow. I you mentioned the girl who traveled the world video clip. Well, I'll tell you about that one quickly. That was put together extremely quickly because I applied through the Adelaide Fringe Festival. Um, you, they pair you up with a filmmaker who you haven't met, and you have 7 days to take one of your songs, come up with the idea for the video, shoot the
Wow.
video, edit the video, and deliver the video all within 7 days. Right? That was so that video that you saw was very quickly done, and it turned out good. So yeah, I'm happy with
And
it.
the, and I take it the song did gain a lot of traction because of that music video, which is
That
good.
that particular song is one of the favorites. There's 3 songs on Stars Aligning that I think got a lot of attention and a lot of people liked. It was Colors, Blank Space, and The Girl Who Traveled the World. Those are the 3 that I think stood out to people. And looking at them myself, I can say, yeah, I think those 3 turned out probably the best. But it's always going to happen, isn't it? Mm.
That's amazing, my friend. That's amazing. So, Ethan, how do you see the future of the music industry, especially with changes in technology and how people consume music?
Oh, um, see, I'm very old school myself. Like, if a band I like releases an album, I will buy the CD still. I just think
Oh,
there is no substitute for when you take the plastic wrapper off and you open the case, and that first time that you remove the CD, it's kind of stuck on there a bit, and you got to
I
and pull it
know.
off.
And you can
Yeah,
autograph a CD too. MP3, you can't do that.
no, that's right. I think. See, I use Spotify myself to listen to music. I think it's very handy. Obviously, they don't pay you a lot when you're an artist, but I think it's very handy in that you have every song ever released. Just I can listen to that now. I can listen to that now. But it does take away from. It does take something away because, as I said, I still have a big CD collection here and vinyl, and there's no better feeling than just the artwork. That yeah, yeah.
Wow, you got vinyl albums? How many vinyl albums do you have?
Probably about 20. Yeah. and some
And
7 and 12-inch singles as well. So yeah,
12-inch singles, really? So you have 45s
yeah,
as well?
yeah, yeah,
I should have
yeah.
kept
So
all mine. Yeah, because
yeah.
people are going back to vinyl because it sounds a lot better than MP3s.
Oh well, it depends on your sound system, I think too. That has a lot to do with it. But yeah, as I said to you, Spotify and Apple Music, YouTube, they're all very handy. But at the end of the day, I guess, yeah, you're still using listening to music that has lost quality from the original wave file. Mm.
Exactly, and with MP3s, I say, "Well, did you know that there's a clarinet in that song?" Said, "I don't hear any clarinet
Mm.
because you're downloading it and ripping it at 128 kp. Why don't you do it
Yeah.
at the 320?" And then you start to hear the instruments that otherwise were stripped away. So that's why a lot of bands have actually released their new music on vinyl because you hear every single instrument. And it's true.
Mm.
I've heard a CD where you hear every single instrument, and then I played an old CD where I'm like, all I hear are drums, guitars, and keyboards. Yeah, but did you notice that there's a violin in there? No. Well,
Mm.
listen to this. They put the vinyl on and said, what's a violin
Yeah.
doing in there? It's always been in there. You know what I mean? So people
Yes.
prefer vinyl. Um,
Yeah.
so that's amazing. Wow. Let me guess what you have in your collection. You have Chicago. Do you have Alan
No.
Parsons Project, Pink Floyd,
No.
Supertramp? No, really?
No. None of that. None of that. I told you I
Really?
was a big U2 fan. Basically, when I was younger, I just collected all their stuff on vinyl as well. But I have
Oh,
some other bands' albums on vinyl, and I give them the occasional spin because it's just got that different vibe. You know, when you put it on and you've got the crack and pop of the needle as it's turning, you know, and that warm sound to it. And things are often mastered differently for vinyl than CD. So often a vinyl master will be less crushed. There'll be a lot more dynamic range on a vinyl. Mm.
maybe I should start doing that. Just I should get a sound system that has like vinyl albums and also has an ability to record. You ever seen those new record player components that actually have a place for USB stick where you can literally record from the vinyl onto
No.
the stick? And you can do that with
Uh,
this. You write on you can put a CD in there, and you can play a record album vinyl,
and
like
record
for
it.
instance
Yeah. Yes.
YouTube, and it'll record it on the CD. It'll
Yeah.
record that version, so you'll hear every instrument. I think I might invest in that
The
because I
only
listen to
problem
it
is
on
though,
Spotify.
the only
Y-
problem is if the needle gets stuck, it'll record. That. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure there's no scratches on your vinyl.
So yeah, and apart from the music industry, do you have any qualms about like how they're using AI now? Like I heard um, they took 8 seconds of "Hey Jude" by the Beatles, put it through an AI, and it came up with this totally different song. Do you think AI is damaging the music industry?
I think, I mean, and it's very big in the artwork world as well. You notice there's all these AI generated pictures that are showing up in my Facebook newsfeed, and I think it looks good, but they haven't quite got it right. If you look at the hands, for example, on people that, you know, the hands look like they're mangled. Um, I think, yeah, I think it does take away something. Um, it loses that human touch if things are too perfect.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like, what I mean about, using Chester Bennington's voice for any concurrent albums, I'm like,
Mm.
"No," you know? I hope
No, I
Mike
don't think
Shinoda
Mike would
doesn't
do
do
that.
that. I hope he
He
doesn't
wouldn't
do
do
that.
that because he even said they're not going to tour with a hologram, Chester.
Yeah, that's good. Um, 2 more questions for you, Ethan.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to aspiring musicians looking to break into the music scene?
Oh, be prepared to fail. Like, and that sounds negative, but it's not just going to all come. It's not going to fall in your lap. You have to work hard. You have to be good, and you have to believe in what you're doing. And it helps if you know people that can help you. I think sometimes you can't make it on your own. You've got to have people giving you a leg up, whether that be friends that are musicians that help you record, or knowing people that work at a radio station that can get your song played. Um, because these days I think a lot of people get famous just from being they're a viral hit. There's a novelty song they put out. Advice. Okay, always write from the heart. Don't try and be someone that you are not. Be yourself. Find your own sound and just give it the best you can, because even if you don't get famous, even if you aren't even moderately successful, if at the end of the day you have done the best thing that you can do, you should be proud of that. And if your music has even affected one other person, if one person has come to you and said, you know what, your song made me cry the other day, in a good way, then you know that is such a great feeling. So that's the advice I would give. And it's because it's hard out there. It's very hard when you're trying to be, you're trying to get your music out there, trying to be a musician. It is very difficult. I think if someone's just being negative for the sake of being negative, then I don't have time for that. But it can hit you hard. It can. So yeah, I think you got to have a thick. That's the other thing I was going to say. You have to have a thick skin. You can't be someone that's easily, affected by criticism, because it can very easily spell the end of your career. You might just think, you know what, I do suck. I believe these people. I suck. That's it. I'm not doing it anymore. And we've all been there. I've been in that situation. A lot of people have, where you've been like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. What's the point? But you know what? Those moments do pass. So I would just say, if you do get some sort of negative feedback, look at who's saying it. If it's someone who's also a musician, okay, you might listen to it and think, oh, how can I improve what I'm doing? But at the end of the day, yeah, try not to let it ruin your life. That's all I can say.
Really love that. Everyone, Ethan Davis's music will be linked down below in the description, especially Spotify, and the music video for The Girl That Traveled the World, I believe it's called.
The Girl Who Traveled the World, yeah.
The Girl Who Traveled the World video will be at the end of this podcast. Lovely music video. It's already gained traction. My favorite. Well, thank you, Ethan, for joining us. I want to say joining us this morning, but to you, it's like
it's morning for you. It's night for me. And honestly, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me. I do enjoy doing these kinds of things.
Yeah, me too. I love doing these, but I enjoy talking to you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will end the stream, everyone. And The Girl Who Traveled the World, excellent tune. And Blank Space, no, it's not Taylor Swift. It's its own song.
Thank you so much.
See you, Ethan.
I wanna jump inside your photographs. I wanna reach out and say, I wish I was there with you. The world is your playground, right to explore. Your eyes have seen it all, but you're always wanting more. And if I'd have your drive, I feel so much more alive. Is there anyone holding your hand? Is there anyone living this life with you? The girl who traveled the world. There's a way about you I have rarely seen. Your smile and carefree nature, I wish I could share with you. And if I'd have your drive, I feel so much more alive. Is there anyone holding your hand? Is there anyone living this life with you, the girl who traveled the world. Is there any place you've not been, or any sight that you've never seen? The girl who traveled the world. And every time I see your smiling face, you're living your best life. Some faraway exotic place, living your best life. Oh, the girl who traveled the world. Maybe it's a trick of the light. I never see sadness, and how you get your zest for life. I will never know. I will never know. No. Is there anyone holding your hand? Is there anyone living this life with you? The girl who traveled the world. Is there any place you've not been, or any sight that you never see? The girl who traveled the world. And every time I see your smiling face, you're living your best life. Some faraway exotic place, living your best life. Whoa, living your best life.